Hey there, y'all, and welcome to the kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to shortcut a game day spread that is going to be perfect for Super Bowl Sunday. You could also use this for any kind of party or entertaining, which we're actually going to do because it's also my husband's birthday on Sunday, which this is a crowd pleaser and it's also one of his favorites. So we're going to start, we've got a main dish and an appetizer we're doing today. We're going to start making the base for our street tacos. This is my chicken street tacos, but this chicken mix is something that you can put on nachos, you can put right over rice, however you want to do it. First thing I'm going to start with is some chicken. Now when I go to the grocery store, I get big packs of chicken breast and big packs of thighs, and then I break them down into smaller sets of thigh and breast mix, because anytime I'm using shredded chicken in something, I find that the moisture level and the flavor that you get with having some thigh and some breast is perfect. So I usually do 2 big breasts to 4 or 5 thighs, and I put that in a Ziploc bag and portion those out. So I've got 4 thighs and 2 breasts, and I've got my Instapot set on 25 minutes. These are boneless, skinless, so they don't take long in the Instapot. I love using my Instapot like this, but you can absolutely use your slow cooker. You do high for 4 hours, low for 8, and be same ballpark. One of the shortcut ingredients, we're using 2 packets of taco seasoning. Normally I do make my taco seasoning, but we are really shortcutting it because we've got a lot of things to do this weekend. We're entertaining and Daddy's birthday, so we want to just make sure we get the most out of our time. Then I have an onion, but I'm not going to chop an onion because this is a shortcut meal. We're going to use our onion straight out of the freezer section. I absolutely love to do that. It keeps away the tears and saves on time. So I keep a lot of the frozen bags of onions in my, you can tell I don't use a packet very often because I have a hard time getting everything out. But I'm going to use a whole bag of onions from the freezer section. And anytime that I do this, I always like to say, if you're chopping an onion, 1 bag is the equivalent of 1 onion, but you can always use half a bag and keep half for later. Just put it back in the freezer with a little clip on it and it'll be just fine for something else. But that's about the measurements. So we're going in with 1 onion, and then I use cilantro stems. Anytime you have an herb, you don't want to waste the stems. There is a lot of flavor in them. So I'm just going to cut some stems and a few of the leaves off and put them right in my pot. The Instapot's going to cook those way down and make them have a really good consistency later. A can of diced tomatoes. You could even use Rotel if you have that on hand, but I've got just regular diced tomatoes going in. We do have lots of flavor already in there. And then we're going to go ahead and put in a little bit of garlic. I'm going to go with a tablespoon of garlic here. And then I'm going to just take this can of diced tomatoes and I'm going to fill it up with water twice. So basically we're just putting about 3 or 4 cups of water in here. You want there to be some liquid in there with your chickens to help it have a lot of good time to get nice and tender and juicy. In the Instapot, it does require a little bit of moisture. All right, 2 of those and I'll be good to go. Just save a little bit of water there for later in case I need to have more liquid. Now, let's stir this all together and then I'm going to add in a little bit more seasoning. One of my favorite ingredients to use as an ingredient instead of its intended purposes is tomatillo salsa verde. As an ingredient, it just throws in a really awesome background flavor. So I'm going to put in about half a cup of tomatillo salsa. You could also use canned diced green chilies there. And then, of course, I'm always going to add some salt and pepper, just to make sure that we have plenty of flavor. So I'm adding an extra tablespoon or so of salt, teaspoon of pepper. And if we used broth, you could pull back a little bit on that salt, but because we used water in there, you're going to want to go ahead and season that. And I'm just going to lock my lid on and let this go for 25 minutes. And that chicken is going to be so tender, we're going to shred it and use that broth to kind of keep the flavor in the chicken. You don't want to get rid of the broth. It's really where it's at. So I'm going to grab my lid and we'll be right back. So we're just going to lock it down. And once it comes up to temperature, after that 25 minutes, and it'll be perfectly cooked. You'll just release the steam right here after it beeps, and once the steam's gone, the lid will unlock. If you have your slow cooker, all you have to do is let it go, and once that meat is nice and tender, shred that up, leaving it in the broth, and it's going to be the best chicken. I'll be right back to show you how to do this yummy corn and chicken dip. Okay, y'all, let's talk street corn chicken dip. This is a combination between my love for buffalo chicken dip and just that yummy, creamy corn dip that you get this time of year when you have a lot of game days. So here we go. First things first, remember this is a shortcut. You can take any of these ingredients and do it the hard way, but we are shortcutting a few things. I'm going to turn some heat on my skillet and get a little bit of avocado oil in here. Shortcutted my onions in the other recipe, but I am going to chop this one. I'm going to put about a tablespoon of oil in here, and then I've got 2 cans of chicken breast. This is drained, and you're just going to go ahead and get it in here, and you want to brown it a little bit before we start the rest of the process because everything is going to build in this pan. This is really good because it's so tender and it's so shreddable that it just blends in and gets that really shredded chicken thing that you like with the buffalo chicken dip really easily. You could always use a rotisserie chicken for this, but I like to tell you all the options of shortcuts you can have on hand. And I find these cans of chicken are really good to just have in case you ever have an emergency. The power's out, something like that, and you need some protein. This is just one of those really easy and helpful options to have on hand. And it does come packed with a little salt, so you want to keep that in mind. Okay, so my heat is going to go on high, and that's going to start getting browned. And then a lot of the flavors that we had in our chicken for our taco, it's going to go into this too. I love doing recipes together that have similar ingredients or same ingredients, so it keeps me out of the pantry as much. Like I just kind of get a group of things out, and it's going to be ready to go for a multitude of different things. So I'm going to take my onion, and I'm going to get about half of an onion diced and into my dip. That other half I'm going to use for the topping for my street tacos. Street tacos typically are very simple. Unlike American tacos where we do lettuce, sour cream, cheese, tomatoes, all the things, really a street taco is simply dressed. So we're going to just make a nice simple slaw and top it with a little bit of cilantro and call it a day. If you'd rather not cilantro, you could use some onions and tomatoes or just some green onions. The herb of your choice. But usually street tacos are just really fresh. I'm chopping this fairly small here just because I love for everything to blend together in this, except for those little pops of corn that are obviously going to be in there. Those sweet pops of corn. Okay, so I got my onion all diced. It's going to go in with my chicken. And this is a creamy, like I said, like that creamy corn dip that you know and love. The hot corn dip mixed with that buffalo chicken dip. So we're going to get to some flavors that make sense together. And instead of buffalo sauce, I'm going to use some taco sauce. That's something I have on hand a lot. So lots of shortcut little things in this dip to make it delicious with almost no effort. Get that mixed around. We are going to also add a few fresh elements. I'm going to add some cilantro here, and at the very end we're going to sprinkle over some bright red tomato to help this just have a pop of color. That's one of the things I always like to think of when I'm shortcutting something is really how can I make this vibrant and pop, even though I shortcutted some of the ingredients. And that's why I like to have herbs and a few fresh things on hand all the time. Okay, now that's all broken down. I've got 2 cans of corn that's been drained. Gonna go in here. And like I said, the goal is just to get a little color on this at this point. A little crisping on the bottom, just to kind of really mimic that charred street corn flavor. At this point of the process, that's really all we want. It was just a little browning and crispness on the bottom of our chicken and a little on our corn. I love corn dip, and I love buffalo chicken dip, and this is just the perfect marriage. And also when you're entertaining, I love appetizers. In our family, we have fairly strict, well, this is what we're having because it's this special occasion situation. So when we have a Super Bowl, it's usually something like subs. My husband loves to do subs, and then I make bacon wrapped chicken, and sometimes I do like a barbecue meatball. Just really traditional. For the last 22 years, I've always kind of done similar things. And the people that have come to our Super Bowl parties for years, they're like, what can I bring? You bring your usual. And then they know there's going to be subs or whatever. But when it collides with a birthday, a lot of times birthday parties, we do either burgers or taco bars. So this time I was like, you know what? We're going to just kick up a taco bar night and have it birthday and Super Bowl worthy. So that's what we're doing. We'll just have to have subs for another game of some kind. There's plenty of basketball yet to be played. It's so funny, during basketball season, we always get reminiscent. My husband and I started dating in January of the year that we started dating, actually January of 2003. And so one of the very first things I ever did was I bought him tickets to a basketball game between his favorite team and my favorite team at my favorite team's campus for the first birthday that we were together. It was his 20th birthday. So whenever basketball season comes around, it just feels super sentimental. I'm like, oh, it's the season where we started dating. All right, we're starting to get a little color, so I've got some high heat. Let's get some seasonings in here. We're going to put in another packet of taco seasoning, but I always like to say, if you want to make yours and have it on hand, here's the ratio. It's 2 tablespoons each of chili powder, cumin, garlic powder, onion powder, 1 good tablespoon, of pepper, and 2 tablespoons of salt. That blend, that mix, is what I use on my tacos across the board. If you want to add a herb to that, you can add a tablespoon of oregano, and I like to sometimes have that in the background, but you don't have to. And you can just keep that on hand. You can double that, you can triple that. It's easy to have. Okay, I'm going to get in a tablespoon of garlic. You can hear my Instapot starting to seal. And this is one of those that could solely be done on the stovetop, but I'm actually going to mix this on the stovetop and finish it in the oven because I do like my cheese to get a lot of bubbly, gooey goodness on top of there. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and get some cilantro chopped. We're going to finish with fresh cilantro as well, but I'm going to put some into the dish. Now for my cheeses, I have 2 cheeses, one for the creamy factor and one for the ooey gooey factor, and that is number 1, cream cheese. I've got half a block of cream cheese going to go in here. You could also use sour cream if you have that on hand and you would rather. And then I'm going to also use some sharp cheddar. You could also use any kind of Monterey Jack, pepper jack. Sharp cheddar is just what I have. Colby Jack. It's also a good one. Now, here is a shocker. Before we go any further, we are going to add a little bit of freshness to this because brightness plus richness equals a well-rounded dish. So we're going to add in the juice of half of a lemon. I like to roll them out first. You see what I mean by having just a few things that are simple on hand that are fresh? Those few things will really just kick up the dish and make it feel absolutely authentic, if you will. Okay, I'm going to do a good half a cup of taco sauce, your brand of your choice, 1/4 cup of this tomatillo salsa that I said was good in recipes. Whoop, that may be a little more, like 1/3 of a cup. It got away from me, but that's not a flavor I mind having in there too much. Now it's time for my cheeses. Get all that mixed together. I'm going to do a little salt and pepper real quick. Get my salt and pepper shaker over here. Do about a teaspoon of pepper, 2 teaspoons or so of salt. Now I'm going to get my cream cheese in here so it can start melting down. And then I'm going to have to get my grater out so I can grate up some sharp cheddar. I do like to say, I don't buy pre-grated cheese. I don't care for the consistency, but you absolutely can do that. You just put in an 8-ounce bag of cheese. But what I'm going to do is put half of my cheese in the mix, the other half on top. So I'm just going to grate up my whole block of cheese, and like I said, put part of it in and then part of it for the ooey gooey topping. But I like to get my cream cheese in at this point so it can go ahead and start melting. There we go. Grab a grater and we'll get to grating some cheese. So I'm just about finished grating my cheese. My Instapot is reading about 6 minutes left on my chicken. All of my cream cheese is nice and melty in my dip, and my oven is preheated to 400 degrees. I'd say we're in good shape. Just a little left here. I always like to grate my cheese on either a paper towel or a piece of parchment paper on top of my cutting board. That way we're not getting another piece of the dishes dirty or something like that to catch it and wash it. And you're also not going to have to wash cheese off of your cutting board. That's just one step you don't have to worry about doing. Can get a little bit difficult to get off sometimes. Okay, there is there. That is a whole 8-ounce block of sharp cheddar. We're putting half into our mixture, and once my cream cheese was melted, I just turned my heat off. It's very warm still. It's just not on. I'm going to stir that in, and I go ahead now and do my taste test for salt, because if you need any seasoning whatsoever, this is the time to do it. It smells amazing, I'll tell you that for sure. I'll get my fork and give this a little taste test. Make sure my cheese is really well mixed. And it instantly starts to melt, so you know that heat's still doing its thing. It needs nothing in the seasoning department. Oh my goodness, that's delicious. I could just stand here with a spoon, but I'm not going to. All right, I'm going to smooth the top back out, get it evenly distributed in my pan. If you wanted to put this in a casserole dish at this point, you absolutely can, but I'm team less dishes. This is a stovetop to oven safe stainless pan, so it's going to do what it was made to do and go from the stovetop to the oven. And one less thing I'm going to have to wash later, because I'm going to take it straight out of the oven and put it on the buffet to serve. Okay, so I'm sprinkling the top with some more cheese. See, you can just pick up the cheese and bring it wherever it needs to go this way. There we go. Thank you, sir, for your help. Oh, a little bit left in there. Okay, there we go. Now, we want there to be some contrast of color on top, and always we want to take every opportunity to give another big pop of flavor. So I'm going to grab a fork. I almost did my tasting fork, but we don't want to do that. I don't want to pick it up to taste here in a little while and have a mouthful of jalapeno juice. I'm just going to place these decoratively around the top. You can get these as spicy or as mild as you want to. Mine are kind of middle of the road. If you have little ones and you don't want to add heat, at this point you could just top with some green onions, or you could do a little bit of black olives or something like that. That'd be really good. So we're going to do this in the oven, and when it comes out, we're going to put some cilantro, a little bit of tomato on top so it's super pretty. But this is about to go in my oven, and we'll see it in a minute. Now, it's time to work on our garnish for our taco. Now, I have a big piece of cabbage here. We actually got a huge head of cabbage recently, and we had not had it in a while, and so I just decided we're going to cut some of that off and save some of it for slaw, and that's just what I'm going to do. Because whenever I make slaw, we almost never ever eat it all, but whenever I make cabbage, there's a boatload of cabbage. So a head sometimes is more than one meal worth of cabbage. So this was the perfect, like, go ahead and plan ahead what I'm going to use my cabbage for. Take my core out, and then I'm just going to get this very finely sliced. And a slaw is something to me that is really a good kick of freshness that you can take any way you like. You can go creamy with your slaw. You can go more vinegary and acidic with your slaw. For my Mexican dishes, I love to just go really acidic, very herbaceous, and then save the creamy kind of slaws for my barbecue meals. That's just where I land on the slaw spectrum. If you're not a fan of cabbage, or if you don't have this green cabbage like I have today, you absolutely can do this with Napa cabbage. You can do this with thinly sliced red cabbage. You can buy cabbage mix, the already slaw mix in your store and do this recipe, what I already had in the cabbage department is going to be the equivalent of one of those bags of cabbage slaw that you buy just right there in the produce. And you can just make the dressing like I'm making the dressing now and be in business. You could also thinly slice some very crisp, fresh iceberg for this. You would just want to use that instantly instead of letting it sit. Cabbage just is a little bit firmer and a more hearty green, so you can leave it to sit more. And it actually gets better as it sits because it marinates for a little while. See, cabbage goes a long way. That more than was enough for 2 meals. I'm going to grab a big bowl and we'll be in business in just a second. Okay, let's put my slaw together. This slaw is going to go just straight on top of my tacos. But if you ever wanted to do like a big nacho sort of situation with this, my Instapot's done. You can hear it in the background. If you ever wanted to do nachos, this would be a delicious, crisp, refreshing topping on top of your nachos too. I love to think of the balance of rich, heavy, spicy, fresh, little bit of sweet here and there. You have to do all the dance. So our sweet is definitely going to be from our corn because you get the pops of sweetness in your corn when you bite down on that. We've got the other half of our onion we're going to slice. And I try to keep it thinly sliced and very equivalent so everything is going to go into your mouth in similar shapes and sizes. Now I know I've used a lot of cilantro in this meal, and anytime I've used cilantro you can absolutely just replace it with green onions or parsley or something like that. But if you are one of those people who think that you don't like cilantro and you've never tried it cooked, it is a lot different if it's cooked. So yeah, absolutely, I get it that you may not want it the fresh version, but the cooked version is just fine on your palate. So I'm going to go through this and slice this again. Always I say, if you're going to be in your kitchen chopping away, you want a sharp, sharp knife. This is a really good one that comes with a cover. So I always link that below that you can get this just straight off of Amazon if you wanted to. I like a cover for 2 reasons. One, because I travel with my knives. And number 2, I have little ones that help me do the dishes, and when they stick their hands in these drawers for stuff because they think they're getting a little bit bigger than they are, I don't want them exposed to my big sharp knives. Okay, half an onion into our slaw. Now, for this, we're going to use some more cilantro. Let me grab it. Little bit of cilantro. And then we're going to go ahead and chop some extra because we're going to put it on top of our tacos and on top of our corn dip. So I'm going to chop a good bit of cilantro here. There we go. Just get my bunch chopped in half, line it up, curling my fingers under, and we're going to go pass through it again. So all in all, I'm probably going to chop half of a cup here, use a good 1/4 of a cup in my slaw, and keep the other 1/4 of a cup on hand for garnish for both my tacos and my corn dip. All right, good. Last thing in my slaw is I'm going to cut up a tomato. And anytime that you want to use tomato and it's in an off-season time, I always say the smaller the better. Check for color. And if the best thing on there on the shelf doesn't look absolutely wonderful, get a cherry tomato. So if you can't find a big tomato that's red enough, get a cherry tomato. My favorite things to do to get in the tomato department during the winter time are those tomatoes on the vine for bigger tomatoes. The tomatoes that are on the vine, and that's what this is. This is one that came on the vine. Those you have to look really close at and make sure their color is good, but you can usually tell when they're going to have good flavor. I also like a tomato called a Campari, and it's almost the size of a cherry tomato times 2. So it's not the biggest, but it's also not the tiniest. It's usually on the vine as well. And then you can also find sometimes a purple colored tomato called a Kumato. Those are delicious year round. But if you can't find good tomatoes that are large, I just say go to the cherry tomato section and just slice those in half or quarter them and get in in whatever dish you're using them for. Pretty much seasonally year-round. So 1 tomato in. So this is going to be our entire topping for the top of our tacos because it's going to have our onion, our tomato, our slaw, except I do add a little bit more cilantro on mine. Okay, now 1 more little slice of tomato. Okay, to finish this up, I'm going to put in a tablespoon of minced garlic, and I'm going to squeeze over some lemon juice. And that lemon juice is actually going to cook our garlic just a little bit so it won't have that pungent raw flavor. Okay, I'm going to get a good couple of tablespoons of salt. This is a big pile of slaw. And the salt's going to start to wilt it ever so slightly. A teaspoon of pepper. And the juice of 2 lemons. This lemon juice paired with the salt is what's going to create that yummy dressing. There we go. These are good juicy lemons. If your lemons are not very juicy, you can always microwave them first for about 20 seconds. Just be careful cutting into them that they don't spew hot acid in your face. I've done that before. Give it a second when it comes out of the microwave. You can also use limes. It would just take a few more limes to get enough. I would say in the lime department, you would want to use about 4 of those. Okay, there's that. And then a good about 1/4 of a cup of avocado or olive oil. We're going to stir our slaw together and it's going to be ready to go. Delicious. Get a good spoon here. I don't think I want to do it with a tiny spoon. I'll be here all day. All right, let's stir this up. I just checked on my dip. It looks amazing. It's about, I would say, 4 or 5 minutes away from being golden brown enough on the top. I just released the pressure on my chicken, so we're going to shred that up in just a second. We are in the home stretch of this meal. So while all that's finishing up, this slaw is going to sit. The flavors are going to marinate and marry, and it's going to be just delicious. I could also eat this by itself with a fork. Okay, there we go. Let's look at our chicken. It's just come out. We're going to check to make sure that it's fork tender. Pull it out of my Instapot. If it looks like it's a ton of liquid, you don't have to use it all. But once you shred your chicken up, you'll see that you need some, if not a lot or most of the liquid. All right, it's fork tender, so we're going to get it out, shred it up, and start building some tacos. Okay, my chicken is all shredded up. I kept almost all of the juice in there with that we had alongside there, just because the juice is just like a sauce in your taco, and it's absolutely delicious. It's time to get out my corn dip. I cannot believe how good it smells in here, y'all. And truthfully, this corn dip could be an entree all by itself because it's got the chicken in it, the corn. You can eat it with the chips and the cheese. See how it's nice and bubbly and brown? Yeah, it's delicious. Now I'm just going to top mine with a little bit more cilantro. Presentation, people eat with their eyes first. A little bit of tomato. You can always do a little avocado if you wanted to, or sour cream. But this looks ready to eat to me. But I am going to let it cool for a minute because it would be very hot if I tried right now. So let's talk about how to build these street tacos. My slaw's been doing its thing hanging out on the counter on purpose so it can get really nice and marinated and delicious. We've got our filling, our chicken filling. So I just want to take my tortillas really quickly and I'm going to wake them up on the stovetop. So I'm going to scoot all this out of the way just for a second and just turn on my burner. You can absolutely just take your tortillas and put them in like a damp cloth, microwave them for just a minute. But I like to take them on the open flame and just get a little toast on them. Just the charring has an extra little flavor that is more authentic to a street taco. You just want to watch them real close and not let them get too far gone. But also I get nervous that they're going to get too far gone and I don't let them get far gone enough. So just Keep flipping and keep watching. You can also do this with corn tortillas. You could warm those up just the same as this, or you could put those in a foil package in your oven and put them in there while your corn dip's going, and you absolutely can get those knocked out really nice and pliable in the oven that way. Or you could use hard shell tacos. My husband really loves hard shell, so we usually do about half hard shell and about half soft shell. See, we're getting some color. This is what you want to see. You see that little bit of charring? That's going to be flavor. If you're going to do the corn tortilla route, I would absolutely say go ahead and when you're building your taco, double your tortilla, because the corn tortilla is going to need a little bit of more support to hold up. All right, that looks good to me. So I'm just get my little taco holder. And like I said, street tacos are super simple. Usually they're whatever meat, a little onion or cilantro, and a squirt of lemon juice or lime juice. That's it. So in our case, we put our entire topping in our slaw. So we're going to get our meat down, first in the bottom. Get it up here so you can see it. And if you're ever doing a taco with cheese, I would always say put your cheese under your meat and let your meat melt your cheese. That helps build another layer of support in the bottom of your tortilla, just FYI. It's a taco building hack. Now, that's in the base there. We're going to take our delicious salsa, which honest to goodness, I could just eat this this slaw all by itself. It's got such good acidic flavor. It's just like you're going to squeeze a lemon or a lime over the top of your taco. Get these up here. There we go. Make sure we get some tomato in there. Yummy. That is dish number one. I'll taste that in a second. But dish number two is this dip that I have been so excited about the whole time. Just going to get in there. Let's get it a little bit closer so I don't have such a long reach. And I'm going to have to blow this for a minute, let's be honest. Get a little bit of cilantro, a little tomato in there. Get you a look at that. That's delicious. That makes you want to do a happy dance. And now for a taco bite. These are never clean, so I'm going to try to do the least messy taco bite ever. But here goes nothing. More dancing. These dishes are going to be delicious on our game day table. Very perfectly celebratory. If you want to get shortcut suppers like this, follow along and subscribe to my channel. I do a new one every single week. You can also get my shortcut suppers cookbook with the link in description. Happy cooking, y'all, and I'll see you in the kitchen.